Hi everyone, I 34F, have been married to Liam, 36M, for almost 10 years. We've built what I thought was a stable, happy life together. Two sweet kids, 8 and 5. A golden retriever named Milo who thinks he's a human, and a modest house in a quiet suburb. We weren't flashy, but we were solid, or so I believed. Liam always presented himself as the dependable one. Steady accountant, punctual carpool dad, reliable +1 at every barbecue and school fundraiser. But over the past year, I started noticing little ripples under the calm surface. He began working later and later, often with vague explanations about tight deadlines or urgent client calls. His wardrobe shifted from well-worn polos to crisp button-downs, paired with an expensive watch he swore was a bonus gift from a vendor. He became glued to his phone, angling the screen away when I passed by, laughing quietly at texts he wouldn't explain. The first gut punch came on our anniversary. We had reservations at a small Italian place we both loved. I'd even arranged a sitter and wore the dress he once said was his favorite. 15 minutes before we were supposed to leave, he called breathless, apologizing, saying a client's tax records were a disaster and he couldn't leave the office. I ended up sitting alone at a table for two, watching the candle burn down while waiters offered me pitying smiles. His text trickled in. "So sorry babe, I'll make it up to you," followed by radio silence. Then came Zoe. He mentioned her casually one night, describing her as a marketing consultant hired to revamp the firm's image. Something in the way he said her name, too light, too quick, made my stomach twist. He brushed it off, claiming she was just part of the team. But suddenly he was quoting her ideas at dinner, praising her creativity and fresh perspective. I tried to talk myself out of suspicion, blaming my nerves on stress from work and parenting. Still, the unease didn't go away. There was an energy about him like he was plugged into some secret current I couldn't access. He started humming unfamiliar songs while folding laundry. He'd smile at random moments, then catch himself and go blank when he noticed me watching. Looking back, I think that's when I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to admit it. I wish I could say there was a single dramatic moment when everything clicked into place, like finding a lipstick-stained collar or a love note tucked under the mattress. But the truth is, it was a slow collection of small jagged pieces that finally formed a picture I didn't want to see. The first real jolt came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Liam left for an early client breakfast, but he forgot his work tablet on the kitchen counter. I grabbed it, thinking I'd save him a trip back. When I turned it on, a notification banner slid across the lock screen. "Zoe, can't wait for tonight, Red Heart." My stomach did a backflip. I told myself there had to be an innocent explanation, a joke, a missent message. I tried to ignore it, but the seed was planted. Later that week, I started noticing how often he mentioned working late with Zoe. Once, he claimed they were finalizing slides for a presentation, yet I overheard laughter in the background of his call, too light for anything about spreadsheets. Then came the night he said he had to stay at the office to close a big deal. After putting the kids to bed, I couldn't shake the gnawing unease, so I drove downtown, parking across from his building. His car wasn't there. I sat for 30 minutes refreshing my email just to look busy, hoping I was wrong. On a gut impulse, I opened the Find My app. We'd shared locations since our oldest was born for safety. His dot wasn't near the office. It was at a trendy bistro halfway across town. Against my better judgment, I drove there. Through the window I saw him, Liam, in the shirt I'd bought for our anniversary, leaning across a table toward a woman with mismatched earrings. Zoe, I assumed. She laughed at something he said, touching his wrist. He reached over, brushed a strand of hair from her face. It wasn't a business dinner. It was a date. I sat frozen, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. For a second, I considered walking in, flipping the table, demanding an explanation. But I stayed in the car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I watched them share dessert. A single plate, 2 spoons. When he wiped whipped cream from her lip with his thumb, something inside me cracked wide open. I drove home in silence, numb. I tucked the kids in, kissed their foreheads, and sat alone in the dark living room, staring at the wall. Every memory of our life together, birthdays, lazy Sundays, whispered promises, felt like it had been rewritten behind my back. That night, I realized I couldn't unsee what I'd witnessed. The man I thought I knew was living another life, and I had no idea how deep it went. By the next morning, I had rehearsed a dozen ways to bring it up, calm, logical, maybe even kind. But when I saw Liam stroll into the kitchen, humming like nothing was wrong, the words shot out before I could stop myself. "How was your client meeting last night?" He froze for a fraction of a second, then gave me that smooth accountant smile, the one that could pacify an IRS auditor. "Oh, boring spreadsheets and cold coffee. Why?" I held his gaze. "Funny. I drove by your office. Your car wasn't there." A flicker of irritation flashed across his face, then vanished under another grin. I had to step out, met a coworker to talk through numbers. "Was her name Zoe?" I asked. For a heartbeat, his eyes widened, and then he doubled down. "Wow, are you really snooping on me now? Zoe and I went over some marketing ideas, that's it. I didn't think I needed to clear every cup of coffee I drink." He launched into a lecture about trust, and how I was letting my imagination run wild. He insisted the message I'd seen was a team joke, and claimed the bistro meeting was strictly business. He even tried to guilt-trip me. "Do you have any idea how much pressure I'm under to keep this job secure for our family? I'm killing myself to give you and the kids a good life." But the more he talked, the sloppier his lies became. He said the meeting ended late, yet the restaurant's website showed it closed at 10. He claimed the heart emoji in Zoe's text was just her quirky style. When I asked why he hadn't mentioned dinner plans, he pivoted, accusing me of not appreciating how hard he worked. By the end of it, I wasn't even angry, just stunned by how easily he twisted everything to make me the problem. I watched him gather his laptop bag, kiss the kids, and head out the door as if nothing had happened. Only after he left did I let myself cry, not just for the betrayal, but for the terrifying realization that the man I loved could look me in the eye and lie without flinching. After Liam walked out that morning, I stood in the kitchen staring at the empty doorway, clutching my coffee mug like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. The house felt heavier than usual, as if the walls themselves knew something terrible had happened. Milo rested his head on my lap, sensing my turmoil in that way dogs always do, and I finally let the tears fall. The anger came next, hot and jagged. I replayed every moment of our relationship, looking for the signs I'd missed. The extra projects at work, the sudden interest in craft cocktails, the way he'd stopped complimenting me but raved about Zoe's vision. Each memory felt like a splinter under my skin. Then came the hollow sadness, the kind that made it hard to breathe. I'd built a life with this man. 2 children who adored him, a home full of photos documenting a decade of milestones, a shared history of inside jokes and quiet comforts. All of it now felt tainted, as if every smile in those pictures was hiding a countdown to betrayal. Nights were the worst. After the kids were asleep, I'd sit on the couch scrolling through our old texts, the early ones where he called me his anchor, the voice memos of him singing silly songs on business trips. I compared them to the curt, distracted messages of the last few months. It was like watching someone slowly erase himself from his own life. I also started noticing the ripple effects on the kids. Our oldest asked why Daddy seemed tired and grumpy. The younger one clung to me more, as if she could feel the shift in the air even if she couldn't name it. I tried to hold everything together, school drop-offs, work deadlines, playdates, but inside I felt split open. What hurt most wasn't just the cheating. It was the way he made me doubt myself. Every instinct I'd had was brushed off as paranoia. Every question turned into an accusation against me. I began journaling at night, just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that my reality was real. One evening, as I folded laundry, I found a movie stub in his jacket pocket, the exact art house theater Zoe had once recommended when he was too tired for our date night. Seeing that tiny piece of paper broke something final inside me. I realized I couldn't keep living in limbo, waiting for the next lie. I didn't know what the resolution would look like yet. Divorce, separation, therapy. But I knew I deserved clarity, honesty, and a chance to rebuild myself with or without Liam. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. Liam sauntered in after midnight, smelling faintly of wine and someone else's perfume, and tried to slip into bed like nothing had happened. I switched on the lamp and told him, quietly but firmly, that I knew everything. The dinners, the texts, the art house movies, the lies piled so high they blocked out the man I used to love. He tried one last time to spin it. Said I was overreacting, that he and Zoe were just really close at work, that he'd been stressed and needed an outlet. But there was no shame in his voice, only annoyance at being cornered. When I asked if he loved her, he shrugged, muttering, "I don't know, maybe." That indifference was worse than any confession. I told him I couldn't live with half-truths and backhanded apologies. If he wanted this marriage, he had to own up and fight for it. Full transparency, counseling, cutting ties with her completely. He scoffed, called me dramatic, then stormed off to the guest room. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to beg for the bare minimum anymore. Over the next week, I quietly consulted a lawyer and met with a therapist. I began gathering financial documents, setting up a support network with friends and my sister. When I finally told him I was filing for separation, he was stunned. Like the possibility of me leaving had never crossed his mind. The first night after he moved out, I sat on the porch with a blanket, listening to the rain and Milo snoring at my feet. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was the steady sense that I was steering my own life again. If anyone reading this is where I was, doubting your instincts, twisting yourself into knots to justify someone else's lies, please hear me. You're not crazy, and you're not asking too much by wanting honesty and respect. The betrayal isn't your fault. Don't shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's excuses. You deserve clarity, safety, and a partner who shows up, not just a man who fills a space in the house. I don't know what the future holds. Co-parenting will be its own storm. But I've learned that silence and pretending don't save a marriage. Truth, even when it hurts, is the only starting point for anything real.